What are the negative impacts of branding? Well, yeah, there's a few. But it all boils down to the idea of two things in particular, and I want to make sure that in this video you're actually being mindful of them. So I will be sharing with you key things that a lot of people actually get caught up in, especially the bigger brands. And I'm going to share with you exactly a few examples of what they did versus what you definitely should not do. Okay. And the reasons why I wanted to make sure that you talk about this, or I talk about this, is because I don't want you to fall in the same trap as they did, because it's very easy to do so. And especially when you're trying to show up as your brand, your authentic brand, the person who you are, or even the business that you are, you want to make sure that you're showing up in the best possible kind of a light, all suitable and congruent to what it is that you stand for, what it is that your beliefs are, and then some. So that your audience can then equally come along with you on your ride and equally come along with you on the journey that you're hoping to take them along, right? So there's a lot of things to consider, especially when it comes to branding. However, I want you guys to just take these things in bite-sized chunks, because I know branding can be a lot. Now, even when I was helped a lot of small to medium entrepreneurs back in the past, and even today as well, the clients that I work with, these key things are always things that I make sure that they are aware of. So working with bigger companies all the way through to SMEs, I always want to make sure that my clients are always made aware of the just in cases, but the have you thought abouts. All these kind of aspects are very key to the growth of anybody's business, to the growth of anybody's brand, and I want to make sure that you guys as well are also tapping into it. Now, before you get stuck into this video, please make sure you go ahead and like, subscribe to my channel, because as always, there's so much to be able to share with you. As I said, about branding in specific, there are topics about the idea of, how to stand out, especially if you're a beauty business, all the way through to a health and well-being business, all the way through to a coach in general. There are many different ways to be able to do it, and I home in specifically on specific groups, especially those in the entertaining industry, to be able to, get yourselves out there and be able to even more so stand out in the best possible kind of a way and show up more so in a way that doesn't allow you to lose yourself in the process. So before you get stuck into this video, as always, once again, make sure you go ahead and like, subscribe to my channel, hit that little reminder bell so you always get notified as to when I go ahead and upload a new video. And folks, make sure you stick around to the very end, because I've got a super cool gift to be able to share with you. So without further ado, let's get stuck into it. So, okay, as I said, we're going to be talking about the idea of what are the negative impacts about branding specifically. And yes, there can be negative impacts. And yes, even the bigger brands have fallen into this trap. Very easy to do so, simply because we can get caught up in the idea of the connections that you've been making, or in the idea of leveraging especially. And leveraging has a tendency to kind of trip yourself up. So you've got to make sure that by understanding your VPV, by understanding all other aspects of your business, what it is that you stand for in particular, and equally who it is that you are reaching out to, these things all built together to secure your foundation, if you like, and so that you can springboard off and equally talk to the people who you know you should be talking to in a clear-cut kind of a way that helps them to understand how you can help them to move forwards. It's super key to be able to understand. Now, why certain brands or brands can make mistakes, especially when it comes to branding their business, to building the awareness of their business, what it is that they're standing for, especially by way of a product or a service, is because they haven't tapped into their VPV, or because they didn't have that question being asked then, but why are we doing that? Or, but why does that even make sense? You've got to be that annoying little child. I say lovingly, because we love kids, but at the same time, you've got to be that little kid that asks yourself, why? But why? Because why is that important? But why? Because if you don't, you're going to fall into traps like these specific brands. And I'm going to call out one in particular, and it's a brand, it's actually quite a cool brand, but at the same time, they slip up every now and then. Hey, we're all people, I guess, we're all human. But at the same time, I'm going to call out Pepsi. Pepsi, they've done 2 commercials in the past, which have really stood out to me. And only simply because I wonder if these questions, but why? But are you sure? Or really, does this really resonate? Simply because these guys did something of the time. They tapped into and leveraged off of a moment that really was a topical issue, right? One key thing, commercial that I'm talking about in specific, was the Pepsi commercial with Kylie Jenner. Now I'll give you like a little screenshot of it somewhere around here or here, wherever it may be. This commercial was talking about the idea of living louder and living now, right? And in the time of, especially leading up to 2020 and after 2020 as well, we all know that riots, or even more so protests, were happening strong and hard and loud and proud, right? And what Kylie, her character, did in this particular commercial was literally be at the forefront of the picket line, I guess you would call it that, and literally hand the police officers who were on the other side a can of Pepsi, to help with the idea of peace, to help with the idea of, hey, just have a can of Pepsi. Let's all live louder and live in the now together, right? Live as one. Now, I get the sentiment behind this particular commercial, but I guess what a lot of people did not like was the insensitive nature behind it, simply because of the results of some of those protests. And simply because a lot of people went back as far as, the time during Martin Luther King, when he did a lot of protests, when he led a lot of protests. And we all know, especially in protests like that, a lot of lives were lost, right? At the hands of police brutality, at the hands of, unfortunately, all the things that went wrong. So the insensitivity around that particular commercial was something that a lot of people didn't like. They couldn't resonate with. Those who were following Pepsi probably did not follow Pepsi after that, because they were probably thinking, oh my gosh, you completely missed the mark here. Now, yes, there are many avenues, and yes, the hindsight is a beautiful place, right? I always call it the idea of being on shoulda, woulda, coulda island. But hey, we're not on there. And at the same time, when you're a bigger brand, or a brand in general, yes, you do have a responsibility to make sure that the idea of what you're doing, the idea of what you're standing for, is going to be resonated by the right people, but equally is going to be putting a message across that is super congruent to the beliefs that you're standing towards. Now, I do believe that, yes, they probably did really resonate with that fact of living louder and living in the now by handing the police brigades, to a can of Coke to keep the peace. But the insensitivity around that is obviously the reality, which is not that easy. Can you imagine if you went and handed a can of Coke to a police officer, or just being in a heated moment like that, being in a heated space like that? Yeah. So that's one way. And here's another example. Unfortunately, yes, again, we're using Pepsi as another example. No, I'm not picking on the brand. However, these two particular things sort of come to mind for me. And it just helps you to understand, right? It's very easy to fall into these little these leveraging traps. And there have actually been other brands, for example, using the idea of protests, using the idea of riots to talk about sales, people stampeding to the sale to be able to make sure they get a deal. Now, I don't need to tell you that, no, you don't do that. You're using a protest, you're using the idea of, again, people fighting or trying to get on a train for their lives, or trying to, reach to a better stage in support of their lives, for the idea of leveraging the idea of the fact that you've got a sale going on. It doesn't work like that, folks. So please be mindful of how you're using specific topical issues, specific topical events to be able to leverage the idea of what it is that you're doing. Now, again, yes, so I'm coming back to Pepsi one more time, but it's the idea of something that kind of worked against them, in my opinion, a little bit. And again, I'll share a little screenshot with you shortly. But it was the idea of, you see a commercial with a little boy who's at a vending machine. Now, he gets not one, but 2 cans of Coca-Cola. He stands on the cans of Coca-Cola to be able to get to the button that is the Pepsi button. Now, yes, he's just used the cans of Coke to stand on to help leverage and to help get to the can of Pepsi. However, in my opinion, what that's also done is help to boost the idea of Coca-Cola as well, instead of boosting the idea of Pepsi. Now, yes, Pepsi is also a huge brand, but Coca-Cola is almost like you're standing on the shoulders of giants to be able to get to where you are. In my opinion, that commercial actually worked against Pepsi. But then, what do I know what their purpose was for that commercial? Maybe it was to the idea of, we're going to still acknowledge Coca-Cola. We're going to still acknowledge them as a huge and superior brand in that respect. However, we're still going to be promoting our own business. And maybe that's what they did. Maybe that's what they chose to do. Who knows? But at the same time, I felt like it kind of worked against them a little bit. But who knows? Pepsi, if for whatever reason you're watching this video, let me know. Any of those who are representing Pepsi, please let me know. But at the same time, folks, I'm going to share, as I said, a little screenshot of what that scene looked like, and you just tell me what your thoughts were. So those two things, be mindful of them. It's very easy to use topical issues, especially when you're trying to understand what are the negative impacts of branding, okay? When you're misrepresenting or when you're using topical issues that are for own personal gain or for your own personal gain or for your business's personal gain, please be mindful of how you're using those topical issues. Be sensitive. Yes, you do need to be sensitive. You do. You just do. Be sensitive to the type of issue that you're tapping into. If it's relevant to your brand, then go for it. If it's something that you stand for, then go for it. But be sensitive to the way that you're delivering it, because it can work against you. So folks, really think about that. When you're trying to understand what are the negative impacts of branding, those are the negative impacts. And on that note, folks, so you don't fall into those traps and so you can understand the idea of how to leverage topical issues, how you can leverage certain things that are going on in today's industry or in the time of the industry that you're working in, right? Or watching this video, in fact. Tap into these 6 key principles. Now, the 6 key principles, you're going to be able to find them attached to the link that's in the description box below this video. Click on that first link and enter just a few details to be able to get these 6 key principles that will help to leverage you, your brand, what it is that you stand for, how it is that you stand for them, and equally, why it is that you stand for it. Also, that you know how to speak about your business, you know how to speak about your brand, you know how to speak about what it is that you stand for, and equally use or leverage off of any other type of topical issue that is out there in a way that's congruent to what it is that you stand for naturally and what it is that you really wholeheartedly believe in, and in a way that helps you to support that cause, in a way that helps you to encourage others to support that cause as well. When you understand these key principles and how it can help to leverage yourself or get yourself out there so that you can show up in the best possible kind of a way, you'll see things change for the better, and you'll see things or even start making better connections to people that actually really, really want to work with you and come along on your journey with you as well. So folks, go ahead and click on that link that's in the description box below. And yeah, equally make sure you take me up on my offer that I give to you as well. And as always, make sure you go ahead and subscribe to this channel. And folks, I will see you on the other side.